That's not a it's not a slam dunk. I mean, I've been telling people across the district and the state and the country for that matter, as we try to raise money, that this is not just a coronation. I mean, we're running against a candidate who, as I understand it, has now spent more personal money than any other candidate for any other position in the history of the state of Alabama. She's already eclipsed 1.5 million and will likely double, if not triple that, by the end of this cycle.
Alrighty. How about this? How about this now, huh? We're back. We're back. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. No, when we returned, we brought the sponsors back with us. How about that? We got more coming too. How about that?
I love it. I love it.
That's right. And if you're watching this, you can see us. I don't know why you'd want to, but God bless us, everyone.
Some people, that's what they need. Some people are visual people.
Yeah, Yes. I mean, listen, I don't know why they're doing it. I know why we're doing it. We're trying to make more money. But listen.
Well,
I mean, let's just be honest about it.
Well, this is America after all.
Right. I mean, that's right. Yeah, we're perfectly happy talking into these mics and nobody ever seeing us. But no, listen, we throw this thing up and some people can advertise. So, look, I am Josh Moon, and that is
David Person.
David, how are you?
Man, I am good. I am good, and I'm going to even say I'm better than good. As we'd say in church, I'm blessed because
nice.
as you know, and most of our listeners and viewers do not know, I had a mild heart attack a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's only mild if it doesn't happen to you, I think. Okay, everything else just a heart attack.
I'm just using the doctor's words. I mean,
that's
right, how
yeah.
they. When I drove myself to the emergency room, I wasn't in any pain, but I had some symptoms. I had, shallow breathing, and also had heart palpitations at about 3 a.m. And so I drove myself to the emergency room, and after they ran a bunch of tests, one of the NPs came in and said, "You've had a mild heart attack, and we're going to admit you." So this was the first time that I recall ever being admitted into the hospital. That's how serious it is. Mm-hmm. And I was there for several days, and long story short, thank God, no blockage, no blockage at all.
Right.
But a heart that's functioning at far less than its capacity. And there are reasons for that I won't get into, but the good news is that, with new medication and changing up, my health regimen a bit, I should be okay. So, that's how we're moving forward, man.
You need me to come over in a jogging suit 3 times a week and kind of be like your Mick, be like Mick and Rocky training, or we could do like a Rocky and Apollo kind of a thing, and we could race each other on the beach at the end and each other high fives and stuff. It's if you'd like to do that.
Now you run 3 miles a day. I don't think I don't think I can keep up with you, but.
I get a golf cart. Get a golf cart and ride along behind you or something. Blow a whistle.
That's funny.
Just don't fight any Russians. Right.
Yeah,
I'm working. Man, I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you, I'm glad I am too. It was a scary moment, a little bit, but I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, good. That's and that's we took a long vacation. It's longer than usual, and it just the problem is it just kind of worked out that way, dates wise, and the fact that now apparently they start school the summer now lasts about 2.5 hours. And for kids these days, I don't understand why we're starting back in the 1st of August. I have no idea why that is a thing. You look at the best school systems around the country; they're all starting back somewhere around Labor Day. It just go through them. I mean, I'm I shouldn't say all and categorize, but almost all of the best ones are starting back somewhere around Labor Day. I don't know why they can do it and we can't. But why you cut the summer short, especially in a state, and I'm going to sound like a Republican here, but especially in a state that relies on the tourism trade, for so much money on our beaches and stuff. And so, anyways, that's beside the point. Speaking of tourism. We need to tell you about our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment before we get going here. I'm scheduling a visit. I am going down. We're going to go down, and I'm going to take my daughter and my wife down, and we're going to have a nice little tour. I've talked to them not too long ago, and we're going to go and try to teach my daughter a little Native American history.
Nice.
Yeah, they're going to do we're going to do a whole thing, and we're going to I'm going to try to turn it, not necessarily my wife and daughter stuff. That's kind of separate. That's just something I would like to do. But we're going to try to turn it into some stories and kind of highlight where the tribe has come from and where it is today, and part of that is the businesses that they run, and part of it is Wind Creek a big part of it is Wind Creek Entertainment. You've seen the gleaming monument and the resort down in Atmore, and probably the one in Wetumpka as well. They also have a location in Montgomery, and they own several casinos around the country, and in some tropical destinations, which I've also talked to them about. haven't got a date for that yet, but we're working on it. Listen, they do a great job. They're Alabama's largest hospitality employer. I asked the folks around them how well they do, and you'll learn pretty quickly that they are one of the best neighbors that you can have around. And so we like them, and we would encourage you to go and stay. Go and take a trip by, and I think you'll like what they've got at those resorts as well. They have a lot of amenities for kids, and it's not just the casinos. They have OWA facility with the park down around the beach. They have wildlife preserve. They do a lot of different stuff. But check them out online. Look them up, Wind Creek Entertainment, and plan you a visit down. Listen, Dave, I'll tell you this. I know for a fact that one of the cures for heart problems, spa visits.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I've got a window coming up. I want to say probably in, I think it's in October. Mm-hmm. I think that's where the window is, where I can actually shoot down there one weekend. So, let me make sure I get the information, because, specifically whoever your contact is about the Native American information, because that's something I'd like to do as well. And I've got a friend who will go with me who I think will also be interested in that. So, let me get that info from you.
Okay, I will definitely do that, and we will we'll plan it out. I hope y'all will as well, and tell them we sent you. And enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves immensely. You will have a good time. I've always had a good time every time I've gone. So, all right.
Nice.
Did we miss anything while we were gone?
Let's see. Man,
so how's Joe Biden doing in the polls? Is he still okay? Everybody.
What a wild ride, man.
Right?
This has been amazing. Just everything that's happened over the past few weeks. It's just been, like we used to say back in the 70s, lickety split. Man, just wow.
Or like Joe Biden still says. Listen, we watched that first debate. So it
cringeworthy.
It was rough, man. It was. I'll tell you how bad it was. I watched about the first 15 minutes, then I went fishing. Literally, I'm not making that up. I literally went fishing, and I just couldn't watch anymore because I knew where that was headed. But since then, I never, when they were talking about him stepping down and Kamala Harris taking over. I knew that a large portion of the country, and matter of fact, I don't know if I said it here, if I said it to some other folks, or maybe Bill Barrett. We talk all the time about these sorts of things, but I said, and I'm not going to take any credit for anything. I'm just I said that the first party that dumps one of these candidates is going to get a boost from the excitement of the American people, because poll after poll, it's not like I was making some great statement, poll after poll after poll showed that the American people didn't like either one of these dudes, you know? And so I think, but I still never would have suspected that there would be such excitement and enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. Never would have thought it.
Well, it exceeded my expectations too, but I think in retrospect it makes sense because, you know, there's some fundamental things that I would point out. One, she has a direct connection to the base of the Democratic Party. She's a black woman. And I know, or you know, if we want to acknowledge both sides of her heritage, black and Asian woman, but we know when people see her, they don't think Asian. She
decided to be black recently, David. So.
Yeah, that's right. Trump informed us of that. We didn't know that she hadn't been black before. Yeah, even though she went to Howard University, one of the historically blackest schools in the United States, and joined the AKAs, a historically black sorority. Yeah, she just became black. What
so dumb.
Asinine thing to say.
It's so
just
dumb.
As a box of rocks. So, you know, but I think, you know, she has that direct connection to the base of the Democratic Party, and that's a very enthusiastic group. I'm talking about black women. I'm talking about the AKAs. I'm talking about even more broadly the group that we call the Divine Nine, which is that collection of historically black sororities and fraternities. I'm talking about the HBCU community, which is significant in this country and has a lot of influence in various ways. So I think in retrospect, it's understandable that she would be able to at least galvanize and excite the base. And then when you start to think about, Josh, what she has done on the front lines, not, you know, during the second half of this of her term as VP, you know, especially on being the point person on reproductive rights in particular, I think kind of puts her in a good position.
Yeah.
And I think it also, my final point, I think it was interesting that it didn't take long for the leadership of the Democratic Party to come to the realization that they could not sidestep her, that it would be a bad look to sidestep the first
There was
black...
one option. Yeah, there was one option to sidestep her, and that was Michelle Obama, and Michelle Obama has made it clear that she's not doing this. And so I think that was the only you cannot bypass the black lady on the ticket with you to get to the next person, unless it's somebody of that standing and that stature, and it's just there's no way. Right.
So so I think it's been exciting to watch. I think her campaign is certainly executing it well. We've seen all these groups pop up, these Zoom groups. That's been fascinating to me.
It's been funny.
All these Zoom groups. I mean, Republicans for Harris and white dudes for Harris.
White dads. It's no. Listen, it has been. I'll tell you, it is. You're right. I think you're right in everything you say, and I'll tell you a funny story. So when I first started out, my first gig in news was covering Alabama State University's athletic programs. I had zero idea about. I'd never set foot on an HBCU. I didn't even know what the hell they were. I didn't. I was an idiot white kid that grew up in Decatur. Never had any sort of contact. I mean, I had, a lot of black friends to play basketball with and stuff like that. But I didn't have that experience. I'd never been to an A&M. Never been to to any HBCU before. I didn't know what was going on. And so one of my initial experiences was that when I got there, they were having a little, argument, I guess, about the head football coach, L.C. Cole. And it turned into this whole thing where some people were trying to fire him, some other people wanted to keep him. And I'll never forget, man, that this lady that I was talking to, that one of the folks that helped me kind of get ingrained into the culture of an HBCU and showed me around, along with late Jay Holsey, who really did a lot of work in helping me understand what was going on. But she told me, so listen, we're gonna get the AKAs behind him on this, and I was like, what? The AKA? She's like, yeah, the sorority. The sorority. I was like, oh, you're going to get the sorority girls. Okay. Well, so let's see what the sorority girls. Dude, these folks showed up in those pastels.
Yeah. Pink and green.
It was over, man. I mean, it was, they create, it was, I had never seen such organization and, and participation. And I mean, it was beyond anything I could say. So when they were saying the other day about, oh, those AKAs are behind Kamala Harris, I was like, well, Trump's ass is in trouble because they're going to show up in those green and pink, and that's going to be a wrap for him, man. I mean, I think you're right in all of that. And it's just, the enthusiasm. I think people really, I think they appreciated on the Democratic side anyway. They appreciated what Joe Biden was able to do, and I think he was the right person at the right time in history to come in and take control of the country from a man-child, and steer it back into prosperity, which is what he's done. He steered it back into prosperity, and really saved us from a catastrophe that was the pandemic. Because the dude who's putting up those messages on Truth Social and stuff, that is a crazy person, okay? And he's going to remain a crazy person, and y'all can back him as a cult leader or whatever if you want to, but that's what he is. And so, I think that Biden worked out really, really well for the country as a whole. I have some quibbles with some things. I think there were a lot of promises that were made that did not get fulfilled necessarily, particularly some progressive things that didn't happen. I felt like he should have removed Merrick Garland very quickly when he saw that was not going forward, because we have allowed now essentially a coup attempt. We know that it was a coup attempt to stretch on for 4 years. What the hell are we doing? Out here, we know this should have been prosecuted. It should have been prosecuted and put in front of the American people way before now. And I think they should have had Doug Jones do it. I think Doug Jones would have been a much fiercer prosecutor on that point. Yeah. And I mean, I just think that we're now we have a guy that literally led a coup. I don't care. We can quibble with whatever you want to quibble with, but they set up fake electors. They had a whole plan to do this thing. They tried to get the Congress to undermine this U.S. election. There is no evidence of fraud anywhere in there, and they were placating a con man who wanted to stay in office. And that happened. That happened in this country, and he led it. He was part of it. There are people that are testifying to this right now. His attorney just decided to be a state's witness, and they're going to get Giuliani to do the same thing because they're facing significant jail time. And so this happened, and the fact that we're just now getting to some of these truths 4 years in it's abhorrent. It's a failure on a massive scale.
Yeah, and I think to highlight something you're saying is really important, and that is that the fake elector part is to me the most disturbing, because it's so deeply insidious and clearly, unambiguously was designed to undermine an election. We can, you might argue that what happened on January the 6th, well, okay, yes, I think that was designed to do that too, but, you could almost say, well, that was spontaneous combustion. Somebody might argue that. I don't argue that. I think it was much more orchestrated than that. But nonetheless, you could maybe argue that with some credibility. You cannot argue with any kind of credibility at all that setting up false electors was some kind of spontaneous response to something that was planned. It was calculated. There were meetings, and people were selected and signed up for that. And that is absolutely evidence, I think, unequivocal evidence of an attempt to overthrow the government.
Yes.
And you're right. That should have been treated just like that.
Yeah, and there was a plan. There was a written plan. I believe it's been presented to Congress. Where they were going to use the military. They were going to it was this. They had this in place that they were going to try. And had it not been for a couple of people, Mike Pence being a main one and the main cog in this, had it not been for Pence standing up and doing the right thing, I think they would have tried to pull it off. But and that's the reason why they were so mad at Mike Pence, and it's just, anyways, that aside, I think we're heading in a better direction now. I also wanted to get your thoughts on the selection of Tim Walz, which recently, we record this thing on Wednesdays. He was introduced yesterday. Had what I felt like was a fantastic opening rally, I guess, and I think he's been very, very good as a surrogate for Kamala Harris for the last several weeks, and yesterday was just kind of a culmination of that.
Yeah, the way I see Walz is, and I didn't really know anything about him, honestly, but watching the speech or the rally and reading up on him, what I've come away with is this. He wasn't the sexy choice. I think that probably would have been Shapiro. But he was the prudent choice. Prudent because he's got the military background. He's a gun owner who embraces common sense gun laws. He's got true street cred in rural America, rural Minnesota. He's the prudent choice. And on top of that, he can throw a punch. When he said, I was raised to keep the golden rule, and then stopped and said, mind your damn business, I thought, wow, that's good. That's good. That was a great line. And I think it communicates viscerally to many of us what we've always known, which is, there used to be a time in America where, when it came to certain moral issues, we let people make their own choices. We didn't try to use the heft of government or to some degree, in some settings, even the heft of the church to try to force people to do certain things. Now there are also some ways that we have erred, and there's no question about that. Not just the government, but especially in the church. But I think we're now beginning to realize and recall that the strength of this country is when we allow people to pursue happiness as they see fit, as long as they're not hurting somebody else. I don't have to, like he said in his speech, we don't necessarily have to agree with what somebody else is doing to defend their right to do it.
That's right.
And that's where we should be as a secular democratic society, and that's what we are. We're not a Christian nation in the sense that a lot of people try to portray it. We're not a theocracy. We're a nation of Christians, but also of non-Christians. Right. We're a nation of Buddhists. We're a nation of Muslims. We're a nation of atheists and agnostics, and that's what makes this country strong. That we can be all of these things, and we can coexist, and that's what the focus ought to be.
It's diversity as a strength, religious freedom, those sorts of ideals, I think, should play very, very well, and I think. He's very, very hard to knock. I thought I like him a lot. I like Shapiro fine as well. My choice would have probably been Kelly, because I think it erases the one knock on Kamala Harris that's out there in the border stuff, and and having him and Giffords is on the stage, I think is just an image that. That carries forward, and I think Kelly's is a good dude and a good person, and would be a great vice president as well. But that said, Walz is almost impossible to knock. And I mean, you see him flailing around now talking about the Minnesota riots and, you know, how he's a crazy liberal or whatever. And it's, you know, he's right. The biggest thing that he said, or the most important thing I think that he has said, is weird. They're weird. You know, what we're facing right now is so weird. And there's a reason why that resonates so well with people. It's because it's true. It's true. What's going on is weird, man. I mean, when you have Trump, let me just read this. I mean, it just.
Yeah, is this from your column?
No. This is the one that I had a little Facebook post.
Okay.
And this is I just screenshotted a post from Trump, and I'm assuming it's on his platform. What is that thing called? Is that Truth Social? Truth Social. Yeah, right. That's his, right? That's his place.
Yeah,
he started that.
Yeah.
This is an actual post from the person who was president, who wants to be president again. What are the chances that crooked Joe Biden, the worst, all caps, president in the history of the U.S., whose presidency was unconstitutionally stolen, all caps, from him by Kamala, I'm assuming that's what he's calling Kamala Harris now, Barack Hussein, all caps, Obama, crazy Nancy Pelosi, shifty Adam Schiff, crying Chuck Schumer, and others on the lunatic left, crashes the Democrat National Convention and tries to take back the nomination, beginning with challenging me to another debate. He feels that he made a historically tragic mistake by handing over the U.S. presidency, a coup, to the people in the world he most hates, and he wants it back now. This is a person who wants to be president. Not a troll on Facebook.
He's such a wacky weirdo. He
is. This is like some shit that your buddy that failed science in high school, that works at the liquor store now, would post on something. This is nutso. It
reminds me of the kid that brings porn to school and sneaks off into the bathroom to masturbate. I mean, it's just, what the heck? I mean, what is this? What is this stuff going on, man?
Well, so that's weird, but this is where I think the distinction needs to be made. And I probably should have done a better job in the column, to be honest, of making the distinction that Walls
was good.
Walls made a very important distinction where he said that is weird. Those people who would post something like that is weird. J.D. Vance and the things that he said about cat ladies and childless women is weird. It's weird. And the normalization of that, you people that are running around here acting like that's okay, that this is normal, that the emperor isn't naked. Yeah, y'all are weird too, man. It's weird that you're doing that, because that's not normal.
Well, and I thought you made. I mean, I've got your column up in front of me. I thought you made some really good points as you were bringing it to a close, especially, you just point out some simple things. All of a sudden, you said, for my entire life, I've been taught, and I know for a fact that others have been taught, to honor the golden rule, to treat others in a way in which you would be treated, to not belittle people, to not make fun of others. You're right. That's fundamentally what we teach our children, all of us. They learn it in Sunday school. They learn it from their homes and their parents. They learn it in school. I mean, that's what people are taught. That's what they embrace. And now all of a sudden we've got, somebody who is openly promoting that it's okay to hate, you say, and to hate large groups of people, and to be derogatory and talking about large groups of people, saying vile, disgusting things about anybody who holds a different opinion. That runs counter to everything that we've ever been taught as children. And so it's weird to now see this promoted by a grown person, and not just a grown person, but a 70-something, almost 80-year-old man who's a father and a grandfather. Yeah. What kind of example is he Who would leave their children with that man? I know I wouldn't.
No, and then on top of that, like these people, is this what you're teaching your kids now? I mean,
Right.
is this what's going on in your house where you're teaching them that it's okay to belittle people? It's okay to make fun of disabled people. It's okay to to castigate an entire group of people because they're immigrants. Their skin color is different. I mean, I don't understand what's happening here. Where, first of all, it boggles my mind that we have turned diversity, equity, and inclusion into something that's unfair.
Yeah.
How? What world am I living in where that is unfair? That's literally the opposite of what it means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what are we doing here? I just don't understand this world now that has been created by the folks that follow this man. I don't understand what's going on, and it's a cult as far as I'm concerned. But
absolutely, and the whole idea of nobody can be a victim but Trump or people that think like him. Everybody else, they need to be held accountable. They need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But then when it comes to him, it's why, whining about how this didn't go his way and how that didn't go his way and how somebody else is wrong for something. It's weird. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It's great summarization, great encapsulation of the Trump culture. It's based on weirdness.
It is weird, man. And the one of the weirdest parts about it, as Wallace has also pointed out, there's no policy. There's no policy at all. I mean, the only policy that's even been mentioned is a policy that's so off-the-wall idiotic, this tariff idea, that it would, you want to talk about inflation? My God, impose a 10% tariff on things. See where that gets you. It's just, every economist out there is like, oh my God, no, we can't do that. And it's just, and that's the only policy. There's no health care, there's no education, there's no anything. It's only, if you look at it, even at the state level, at our state level, the only policies they have are policies of tearing things down. All right, it's tearing down the Department of Education, tearing down the FBI, tearing down the CIA, tearing down it's always tearing these institutions down because they don't like that they're being prevented from doing something that benefits themselves. And that's all there is to it. So, all righty. Well, that was a hell of an open. It's like we haven't lost a step.
That's what happens when we're away for a while. We have all of this bile and venom pent up. We got to let it out.
That's right. Don's going to be so happy, man. He's going to be mowing his grass, and he's going to be so happy out there to have us back ranting and raving in his ear as he's doing it.
What's up, Don? What's up, man?
Let's slide out of here. We're going to come back. We're going to have Shomari Figures, your next congressman from the state of Alabama, join us, and then we'll do a right wing nut when we wrap it up. All right, we're back in a minute. Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy to have with us now the guy who's going to be the newest state representative from Alabama. Or I'm sorry, state representative, the U.S. rep from the state of Alabama, representing the second Congressional District. There's no reason to cross fingers. We got this thing's in the bag, man. Come on. Shomari Figures joins us now. Welcome in, sir.
Hey, pleasure to be here, Josh and David. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. I hear from people from time to time that everybody gets nervous, around when you're running a campaign and stuff, and so I'll hear from some folks every now and then like, what do you think about that second? What do you think? And they're always surprised. I tell them, nope. It's done. It's over. And I know that there's a lot of campaigning to be done. I know that there's a lot of things that you have to do and a lot of votes that you have to go out and get. And I'm not in any way dismissing the work and the things that you've done so far and the things that you're going to have to do. But I think, first of all, I thought you were in a pretty good spot regardless of who was at the top of the ticket. But I thought when Kamala Harris came on, that kind of changed things for y'all. And I just, wanted to kind of get your perspective on where things are, where they were, what the campaign looks like 90 days or so into this thing, or 90 days out or so.
Yeah. So, look, I slightly disagree with you, although I appreciate the vote of confidence. I mean, one thing that's clear is we know that Joe Biden would have carried what is now this district in 2020, and would have both he and Doug Jones would have carried it handily. But just 2 years later, Kay Ivey would have carried this district by a few percentage points. And so, history tells us that this is a district that that's not it's not a slam dunk. I mean, I've been telling people across the district and the state and the country for that matter, as we try to raise money, that this is not just a coronation. I mean, we're running against a candidate who, as I understand it, has now spent more personal money than any other candidate for any other position in the history of the state of Alabama. She's already eclipsed 1.5 million and will likely double, if not triple that, by the end of this cycle. We're running against a candidate who is now backed by the Republican national establishment in this race, and we know that they're going to throw resources behind her. She was just last week added to their equivalent of the Democrats call it their red to blue list, the Republicans call it their young guns list. She was added to that program, so they see something in the data that I think tells them that this is that they have a shot in this race, and so we're not taking that for granted at all. We're going to do everything that we can to kind of keep beating this drum because, the data, I think, that the court relied on in establishing the district. I mean, historically it shows, that Democrats certainly would have carried, I believe 15 out of the last 17 elections in this district. However, we would have lost 2 just in the last cycle. The governor's race, and I believe the lieutenant governor's race on that same ticket. So, we got to campaign it. We're going against an opponent that is going to be very much so, well funded, as I stated, and, spending won't be an object for them. So they, at some point, they'll be able to go up on the air and stay up on the air, pushing whatever sort of message they want, whether it's, true or untrue or distortion of the truth, they'll be able to push it and push it and push it. And so we still have to do everything that we can to make sure that we're getting people out motivated and inspired to go vote.
Right. Did the change from Biden to Harris, do you think that helped?
I think so. I think what you've seen. I mean, look, this is a district, as you know, it's almost 50% black, 48% black, 46% white, and I think whenever given this state, particularly this district, with the history of the civil rights movement and it being the home of so many historical events that got us to the point where we're even having this conversation about having a district right now. I think having a black person on the ticket certainly helps energize people, especially in this district. I think having a woman at the top of the ticket certainly helps energize having people in this district. I think having an HBCU grad at the top of the ticket helps, especially in this district where we're home. Obviously, the state has the most HBCUs than any other state in the country, but this district is home to at least 3, Alabama State and Tuskegee and Bishop State Community College down here in Mobile being 3 of them. And so, I think when you add all of those factors in, having a woman that's a black Greek at the top of the ticket also significantly helps, especially in this district where you have such a high percentage of African Americans who go on to college, who pledge Greek organizations. I think you put all of that in a bowl and you mix it up with her experience and her qualifications, and some would say her youthfulness, comparatively speaking. I think she brings a lot of value to the top of the ticket and something that will certainly help encourage more people to get out and vote.
Shomari, since you brought up the Greek thing, and I think you're right, that is a significant factor in this race in terms of the galvanizing of the voting base. Are you Greek?
I'm not. My mother's an AKA, like Vice President Harris. But I did not pledge. I got, throughout the family, I have 2 aunts who are AKAs, one uncle that's a Q, two uncles that were Qs, one uncle that's a Alpha. I got Kappas in the family. I got Deltas in the family. we got
All
them.
right.
We got them
All
all, but
right.
I did not pledge.
Okay. Okay. All right. It didn't even occur to me to ask you that until I heard you say what you said, but that's
Yeah.
fine. Now, I wanted to ask you about someone else who has figured prominently in your life, really has been legendary, and that's your father.
hmm
What do you remember about your father, and how do you assess his legacy as you consider now the path you're on?
Yeah, so it's so I was a kid when my father died. I had literally just turned 11 the week before. So all of my memories of my father are like those, childhood memories. And when you factor in, the fact that you really don't, have memories beyond what age 4 or 5 or whatever, so I don't have a very, condensed sort of memory and recollection of my father, and they're not within the political context for the most part. I mean, I knew he was an
Okay.
elected official. I remember walking, the streets for his campaigns and walking the streets and going door to door, being at campaign headquarters and that sort of thing for his races, for people that he was supporting. I can remember going to a couple of the New South conventions, but and going to a few speaking engagements. But most of the memories I have of my father are just of that as a father, as a being outside every weekend cutting the grass, being at the park league football and basketball games, and going to church, and being around the house, and the vacations and that sort of thing. And so politically, I didn't have the benefit of having that sort of mentorship or tutoring, from my father. All of that came from my mother, at least inside the house. But coming into this race, one thing that I want to even go so far as to say that I underappreciated was, man, just the impact that my father had on so many people across this state. My dad, in a couple months, it will be 29 years, 20, let's see, 20, 28
You,
years.
yeah, I was going to say you're
Uh,
coming up on 30 pretty soon. Yeah.
yeah, almost
Hmm.
30 years since my father died. And, to walk into rooms in Castleberry, Alabama, or Owasso, Alabama, or Union Springs, or, Tuskegee, or Montgomery, or Mobile for that matter. And people, tell you stories about how my father impacted their life, how my father, worked with them, on some case, whether it was helping them keep property, or, helping them keep a job, or whatever it was. That was something that I did not expect it to be at that level. I knew my father had an enormous impact in the state. I knew about the big cases that he worked on. I grew up in the shadows of the Michael Donald case down here, which is the case where in 1981 the Klan lynched a teenager here in Mobile, and then they filed the lawsuit with my father, and then Morris Dees and Southern Poverty Law Center joined in, and they ultimately ended up financially bankrupting the Klan, at least. But obviously didn't bankrupt their mission and their purpose and their priorities. But it's been, regardless of the outcome of this election, whether that was in the primary or in the runoff or even now in the general, regardless of that, getting to learn and getting to know my father in a different capacity across this district has made this entire experience worth it. I mean, it is that part of it has been so fulfilling, that I literally cannot put that into words at all. And so I hear the stories from people, and all I can do is try to be, the best that I can be in living up to that legacy. And I think at its core, that was the legacy of helping people, using government to try to help people, using our court systems to try to help people, using the different levers of local, county, state, and federal government to make people's lives better. And so that's the sort of experience that I think that I brought to the table in this race, in terms of having worked across federal government in all three branches. And so yeah, so that's how that is factored in and continues to factor in.
Great.
I wanted to ask you one thing too about we had ADP Chairman Randy Kelly on
hmm
a few weeks back, and he mentioned that in his Randy Kelly way, that that there was some, I mean, it just the way he does it, it's just so off the wall
What's that
sometimes.
mean?
Well, I mean, he just does it in this off the wall way where he just throws things out, and it just and one of the things he said was that they'd been unable to communicate with your campaign for some while, because essentially we asked him, we said, look, this is the most important race in the state. It is, it's a seat that has been fought for years now in the court system, and went all the way to the Supreme Court, made national headlines. Is the Democratic Party able to help and support your campaign and getting a Democrat into that seat? And the answer was, am I safe in saying, David, the answer was disappointing and confusing? Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to quibble with you on that.
Right. So, from your perspective, what has that relationship been like, and why is there, I guess, some level of friction there?
Look, I personally wouldn't describe it as a level of friction.
Okay.
Look, we've had nothing but positive interactions with the state party since we got into this race. Obviously, they endorsed a different candidate in the primary. Well, not the state party, but
right. I understand. Right. But really, the state party.
Yes. And so we, and then the Democratic Conference endorsed us, in the runoff. And so, look, we've not had any issues with them personally. And at the end of the day, like, what we have to do as a party, not just in this race, but across the state, and in a collective way, we have to come together. We have to work together. We're working with the party hand in hand now, as you know, with a race like this. The national side works with the state side in terms of pushing resources into the state to get behind the ticket here in the state, and that's happening. We've not had any issues there. My phone number has been the same since I got in this race, or since high school, and so people, people have not had a problem getting in touch with me, and so we're going to continue to do everything that we can to make sure that we're working hand in hand going forward, and doing all the things that are necessary to not just win this district, but get the party as a whole on the type of footing that it needs to be on to be competitive in other races across the state.
That was a very diplomatic answer. And that was nice. Listen, it was good. It was good.
But it's the truth. Like, at the end of the day, I haven't been privy to listening to the entire response yet, but I heard some bits and pieces of it. And look, I think we have a very unique opportunity here, one that we didn't think that we would have, right? Like, until June of last year, so about 15 months ago or so, 13 months ago, we didn't know we'd have this opportunity. It wasn't an opportunity that the party was prepared for, or waiting for, or building for, but now we have it. We came out of the deepest primary, for any comparable race, certainly in recent memory, if not in the history of this state, where you had 5 sitting state legislators running, you had the son of a 6th and myself running. You had people running from literally every major metropolitan area of the state, from Huntsville to Birmingham to Montgomery to Mobile. And it was a lot. It was a lot of people in East Alabama. We had people representing East Alabama in this race as well. And so it was a lot. It was a lot for the party to take in, and a lot for the party to take on. And so coming out of that, the party has a tough job in bringing all of these factions. I don't want to say factions, but bringing all of these interests and equities together for the purpose of winning a congressional seat that we weren't necessarily planning on having. And so, look, Randy's got a tough job. The Democratic Party has a tough job, and we have a tough job as a campaign, but we're going to all work together to get it done.
Well, let me just be, Josh, if I can, let me just be blunt. Let me just ask a very direct, blunt question. When's the last time you talked to Randy Kelly?
Probably direct myself. Yes. It's probably been at least 2 months or so. Yeah, probably about 2 months ago. My campaign has been more in direct contact, but I don't have all of the direct conversations myself. But we've been in touch. There's been conversations there. There's been conversations with obviously the Alabama Democratic Conference. There's been conversations at all of the local Democratic Party levels here in Mobile, down here with Ben Harris and Montgomery, and just out in Bullitt County, meeting with their group last week. So we've it's not that there's been a lapse in communication with the party as a whole. That's just not it. We've been very intentional about making sure that we're talking with the party, and keeping the party up to date. And obviously, we are the sort of I won't say centerpiece, but we're the sort of conduit for a lot of activity that's taking place now between the national side of the congressional, the DCCC, and the state party. And so we're literally we're all factored in together. So it's I mean, we don't have any communications issues as far as our campaign is concerned, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that everybody is singing from the same sheet of music going forward.
Okay.
Well, and going forward, is it means facing Caroline Dobson, whose honestly name I've mispronounced for months, leading into this. But so looking at her campaign, looking at yours, where do you feel like the biggest contrast is that people should realize? Where should people focus the most on the differences between you two?
Look, I think, since we got in this race, we've been running this race about issues in District 2. What are the issues that matter to the communities from Mobile County to Conecuh County to Clark County to Russell County, Barber County, Montgomery, and everywhere in between, Macon County, Crenshaw County? What are those issues, right? And how can we use the federal government? How can we use the federal government? Because that's what this issue is. I mean, that's what this position is. It's a position to represent these communities in Washington, D.C., to pull back the resources from the federal government to better the lives of people in this district. That's what we've been running on. So we've been talking about, since we got in here, we've been talking about getting reopening the window for Medicaid expansion for the federal reimbursement window. We've been talking about getting in more infrastructure investments on the federal side into this district as a whole. As you just saw, Mobile just got the largest infrastructure investment a couple of weeks ago announced in the history of the state of Alabama, and none of the Republican delegation voted for the act that actually funded that. We've been talking about how can we get more resources into our rural communities to help them be able to better recruit and retain employers, right? These are the issues that we've been talking about right here in this district. And I think the biggest contrast between myself and my opponent is that she's been driven by national issues. She wants to talk about immigration. Well, I went around all 13 counties of this district, since last October or last November, and, not a single time has anybody said to me the biggest problem that we have right here in Tuskegee, Alabama is illegal immigration. The biggest problem that we got in Crenshaw County is illegal immigration. That's just not the realities of what people. In fact, most of the farmers there that I've talked to, they actually want more immigrants to come in under the H-2A and H-2B visa worker programs to help fill some of the jobs that they have a tough time filling. That's a program that I worked on when I was in the Senate. And so, I think, having a localized focus at the end of the day, people ask, what is the role of a congressman? There used to be this concept of being a statesman or a stateswoman, right? Where you went to Congress for the simple purpose of representing the people in the interests of your district, not to go up and be a political, puppet or a political pawn for national issues or a national party. You go up there to do what's best for the people in your district. And I think that's the biggest contrast that we have. From our side, we want to listen to the issues of how we can make life better in Luverne or Evergreen or Greenville. I don't want to listen to Donald Trump telling me what the issue needs to be. I don't want to listen to Kamala Harris telling me what the issue needs to be. I don't want to listen to, anybody telling me what the issue that we need to be working on in this district needs to be, other than the people that we are serving in this district. And so I think that's the biggest contrast. We're focused on making Alabama better. We're focused on making District 2 better. We're focused on putting the cities and counties and communities in District 2 first, their issues, the real issues, not just the issues that play on Fox News or MSNBC or CNN or any of the other national outlets. We're worried about what's going on here on the ground. And I think that's the biggest contrast. That's what I would say. And,
Okay.
and when we're elected, we're going to have to represent everybody. And we will do that. And we've spent this entire campaign, if you go back and look at any of our dialogue, any of our rhetoric, it has not been on, necessarily partisan or far left issues or a left ideology. It's been on an ideology that we think appeals to the masses here. My opponent, on the other hand, has run hard on a pro-Trump, agenda, which, as we know, does not appeal to at least 50% of the people in this district. And so I think that's the biggest contrast to us.
Right. One specific
that and I'm not worth $1 billion or anything close to it.
Right. Well, I was going to kind of play into my next question because I was going to ask about education. I know education has been kind of a focal point of yours as well. And I've seen some of her stuff where she's going to defund the Department of Education. She's out here ranting and raving about the CRTs being taught in school, and I've got a pretty good idea of why she doesn't really want people to look too far back into history about how people came into their money. But that's we could study that, I guess, if we wanted to. But I guess education wise, where do you see the difference between you?
Well, I think so. I recognize this, that you cannot have like one of the big issues of the day, one of the big sexy topics of the day is workforce development, right? We hear it thrown across in so many different facets. Mm-hmm. Well, here's what we know. Regardless of where you feel about public schools, private schools, charter schools, sit your feelings about those issues aside. Here's a mathematical reality. Mathematical reality is this. There are not enough charter and private schools to educate the masses in this state. That infrastructure does not exist almost in any state, if any state at all. So what that tells you is that the vast majority of the workers, the future workers that we need for the jobs, that we need to be able to recruit the types of industries that we want here in the state of Alabama and in this district, the vast majority of those workers are going to come through a public education system. Hands down, like it's a mathematical fact. The vast majority of them. I would venture to say, I don't have the backing of it, but I would venture to say probably at least 75, if not closer to 80, 85% of the future workers or children in this state are educated in public school settings. And if that is a fact that we recognize, and we understand that those are the future workers that we are trying to develop to become the workforce of the future for the industries and jobs that we want here, then we cannot legitimately say that we are doing everything that we can from a workforce development standpoint when we're operating from a position of divesting in public education in this state. We can't say that we're doing the best job that we can do to prepare the future workers of this generation when we're divesting in public education. And I think that is a huge difference between myself and my opponent. I believe that we have to do everything that we can to bolster our public education systems. I believe that teachers and school support personnel are the single most important professions to the future of this district, this state, and this country, because they prepare every other profession in the world. There's no other profession that touches literally every other profession at some point in their academic career. But we are in an environment where, that's not reflected. I've heard it said, show me where you spend your time and your money and I'll show you your priorities. We're not spending our money or our time sufficiently in our education systems, particularly in our public education systems, particularly with our teachers and our school support personnel. In order to have the best schools that we can possibly have, you have to have two things. You have to have modernized school infrastructure. So in Congress, that's one thing that I will fight for, is every federal dollar that we can pull into this state and into this district to rebuild our schools. We still have far too many schools here that were built as part of the New Deal that came, that were constructed originally post-World War II. Been renovated, many of them to some extent, but still, it is not a 21st century learning environment for too many schools in this district. So that's one thing. The second thing is you cannot have the best education system unless you have the best educators. And if you can't recruit and retain the best teachers, then your academic systems will never be to the degree that we need them to be to create that workforce of the future. And so that's another one of the things that I think we just differ on. I want to pull every single dollar that we can from the federal government to make sure we're doing those things and supporting those programs and initiatives to make sure that teachers in the state of Alabama and school support personnel in this state and in this district are not just coming to the classroom, but are staying in the classroom. The average teacher now, as I understand it, in the state of Alabama, the average first-year teacher will no longer be in the classroom by year 4. By year 4. That continuity or that lack of continuity in a public education setting or in any education setting is critical, and it's a critical failure. So we have to make sure that we're doing the things that we can to make sure that we're creating an environment where teachers want to be teaching in the schools that they're in, that they feel valued and appreciated and respected, and cared for by the elected officials and the leaders in their communities, so that it will be conducive to an environment of retaining them long term.
Right. Last thing, we'll get you out of here. The cryptocurrency thing. I know that you got a lot of support, financial support during the primary, and I assume you still are. And I saw the letter that you signed on to the other day.
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot of people, and I would probably, although I have invested a little in cryptocurrency, but I just I'm not as familiar with it as probably some other people are, and
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people aren't. What is your position on the cryptocurrency, and what, I guess, just what is that platform?
Yeah. So look, I think, from my perspective, it's not so much about the cryptocurrency perspective of it, like from a financial lens, as it is about the underlying technologies that it's based on and how said technologies can be used to leveraged to solve some of the problems that we have in this district. I mean, we're still talking about a district here where everybody here doesn't even have broadband. Right. A lot of people don't have broadband. We're talking about a district where, there's still far too many students that have to go sit in the McDonald's parking lot in order to access the internet. And so more broadly speaking, I mean, there are technologies, the underlying blockchain technology that is also the underlying technology in cryptocurrencies, that can be used to help spread broadband access. That can be used to help some of the healthcare access issues. It can be used to do so much. It can be critical in some of the educational issues. It can be used to help in our workforce development side of things. And so that's where our interest in that issue has always resonated and has always been, is on the actual underlying blockchain technology. And it is a technology of the future.
Right.
It is something that we are seeing more companies gravitate towards. It is something that we're seeing, more governments even sort of get a handle on. Alabama just stood up a blockchain commission to also get a better understanding, or try to get a better understanding, of how blockchain technology can be used to help make our government better. And help, address some of the issues. And so that's our general platform on the issue, is how can we best leverage it in a place and put it in a space where it can, be most efficiently and most effectively recognized. And I think people are coming on board, as you've probably seen. My opponent is also now trying to jump on that bandwagon as well, and seeing the benefits of blockchain technology. And so, it's it's just another avenue where, that industry is still generally enough in its infancy, right? It's still, very young for all intents and purposes,
Right.
to where we can figure out ways to potentially make the state of Alabama, to potentially make this district a sort of example, a leader in the space of how we can leverage blockchain technology and digital asset technology to be able to improve conditions and outcomes in this district. And so that's why we're supportive of it. And that's, that's just our general belief in it.
Okay.
Hey, Josh, let me
Yes.
jump. I'm
Go
sorry, Josh. Yeah, let
Go
me
ahead.
jump in with one other question.
Go for it. I got all day, man. So we can no rush.
I appreciate it, Shomari. Several years ago, I met a woman named Carletta Davis, who lives in Pritchard. And she was telling me and some others about the crisis in 8 Mile, the gas leak that led to some really serious environmental problems there and some public health issues. And I see here that the Southern Environmental Law Center and the SPLC have come together to try to address what Carletta and others are now describing as a severe water crisis in Pritchard. They're not able to get clean water down there, according to these reports. What do you know about this situation, and what, if anything, are you prepared to try to do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I literally grew up next door to Pritchard. I grew up in Tomanville, which is the northernmost neighborhood in Mobile, which borders Pritchard. Many parts of Pritchard have been in my mother's and formerly my father's state senate district. So very much so well aware of the issues in Pritchard, and happy in this race to have the support going down the stretch here of State Representative Napoleon Bracey, who represents most of Pritchard, Pritchard's mayor, and members on the Pritchard City Council. So these are issues that have come up. And so here's what I understand about it. The issue that Ms. Davis has been so diligently working on, and the water issue, these are environmental justice issues, right? These are issues that are plaguing a predominantly Black, a large segment of which lives at or below the poverty line, that are plaguing these communities. And it's issues that if they were happening in other communities that did not look like or did not have the same socioeconomic dynamics, those issues likely would not be happening. And so the gas leak, I know it was leading to a very foul odor. They couldn't get people to help, and so they were able to raise and organize and raise awareness around it, to be able to get people to finally come in and look at it and try to figure out what was going on. And in Congress, I would support that effort. If that took getting the EPA down here and getting them involved to investigate it, if it's something that warrants escalating to a Department of Justice level, or HHS level to look at the health ramifications of what's going on with that issue, that's something that I'll be supportive of, because at the end of the day, people should not have to live in environments where it smells like rotten eggs outside. Period. Nobody wants to. I mean, that's damaging to every type of interest that you could want. You don't want to send your kids to school in that environment. Companies don't want to set up their businesses in that environment. You don't want your kids to play outside in that environment. People don't want to buy homes in that environment. People don't want to rent apartments in that environment. So it's something that is damaging in the entire economical spectrum, and something that we have an obligation as elected officials to dig deep into and get to the root causes of it and fix it. Like if it smells like rotten eggs outside, guess what? It's a problem, right? And it's something that needs to be fixed. And so I think we can all agree on that. And when we can have that very baseline understanding, then let's talk about how we get to the solution of identifying the problem, rectifying the problem, and ensuring that it doesn't happen again. So that's one. On the water side of things, look, Pritchard's water infrastructure is significantly deteriorated. This is their water system. Their public water service in Pritchard has a relatively long recent history, last decade plus, of a lot of litigation, a lot of funding issues that they need help in resolving to be able to try to repair their water infrastructure. I read a report not too long ago that indicated that their water loss ratio in Pritchard is somewhere approaching 50, if not 60% of the water is lost from the point of distribution to the time it gets to people's faucets. Which is, that is totally unacceptable. And if you're losing water, that means that other contaminants are entering the water streams after it's been treated, but before it arrives to the end users. That's a problem that's unacceptable. The water bills in Pritchard, unacceptable. Their water bills in Pritchard cost almost 3, if not 4 times what it costs for the same water in the city of Mobile, because we're on 2 different water treatment, or 2 different water systems. And so that is unacceptable. And a large part that's influencing that is the loss of water that's happening in getting from point A to point B. So from the federal government side of things, what can we do is we can go and try to get every dollar that we can to help them begin to rebuild their water distribution infrastructure. We can make sure that they have access to the government resources that are necessary to be able to reform their water system in a way that is obviously, from an infrastructure standpoint, is sound, but also make sure that we're putting in place the best practices for a long-term sustainable situation in Pritchard, because this is not a problem that we should be having. It's just not. And so it's one that I think that we have an obligation to step in and try to secure federal funding where we can to try to help resolve that issue.
All right.
Let me tell you, I'm going to guarantee that Caroline Dobson has not given a more thorough, or even close to as a thorough interview, and answered all the questions like that has come up here. And so, I mean, really, it's the truth. I mean, we've thrown everything in the world against the wall here, and I think that it's and honestly, it's been, you've handled them fantastically. I mean, it's just, the district, what you're doing, and I don't know why in the world anybody would vote for somebody else. I really don't. And we've got to get folks out and get them to support you, and win this seat, and send you send you to Congress so you can do the good work that you've been talking about. And listen, man, we really appreciate you coming on and spending an extended period of time with us. I mean, I know we've said 20, you've gone 35, and it's all been great. And I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. We do have to do everything that we can to get awareness out, get people inspired, get people motivated, get people organized, and ready to go vote on November 5th. Making sure everybody has a plan to go vote, make sure everybody is taking somebody with them. I heard it said not too long ago when I was in Tuskegee that if you go vote by yourself, you're doing it wrong. So we gotta take people there with us and just make sure that we show up to the polls, because at the end of the day, man, look, this is a district where far too many parts of this district have never had the opportunity, or certainly not recently, have not been represented by people in Washington who legitimately want to try to resolve some of the issues and leverage and pull every lever of federal government possible to try to bring some solution. Obviously, I am just one person, in a Congress of 435 people and 100 senators, so nobody can guarantee a specific outcome. But I can guarantee you nobody will bust their ass more than me to try to get to those solutions that we need to do. I've worked across federal government. I have relationships across many aspects of federal government from my time. And we're going to use every single, asset that we can, to try to bring relief here and to try to, help people out and make life better here in the state of Alabama and in District 2.
All right, that is Shomari Figures. Y'all, listen, get out and vote and do, come on. I mean, somebody, I beg of you, somebody ask Caroline Dobson about the water issues in Pritchard, okay? See what she says.
No answer. Yeah. I'd be stunned if she had an answer.
Yeah, come on, man. All right, listen, Shomari, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll get you back on before election time, and if you need us and we can do anything to help, we're certainly available.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. I look forward to coming back.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That is Shomari Figures. We're gonna slide out. We'll be back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a moment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. I want to thank our good friend Shomari Figures for joining us and spending an extended period of time. I thought that was a really good interview.
It really was. Very substantive.
He knows his stuff, man. He really does. And I hope he's successful in that.
Can I confess something?
Sure.
I did not expect him to have a substantive, thorough answer on 8 Mile and Pritchard. I didn't. I just figured that would be
cast-off thing. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah. That's kind of more what I expected. So I was really surprised when he broke everything down the way he did. I thought, okay, so he really knows this issue, and based on the way he answered, I think it's pretty clear that he understands he's got to address that. Yeah. As when he wins. So good for him, and I'm happy about that because I've known about that situation for years and had some many conversations with Carletta Davis, and I've been down there several times, and it's not a good situation, man.
Listen, and I'll tell you this: it would have been I don't know if acceptable is the right answer, but understandable, I think, for him not to have a firm grasp of it because he hasn't lived there, And
that's a great point.
That's not a knock on him, but he hasn't. You could forgive him for not knowing every intricate detail of things happening all around the 2nd Congressional District. Having been working in Washington, and I think that would have been fair, but obviously. The man has gotten out and made his way around and kept in touch, and he knows the district. So I thought it was spot on what you said there. It was a very good answer to a complex issue. But anyway, thank him for coming on. Thank the folks at Wind Creek. We really appreciate them for sponsoring. SPLC still on board. We'll maybe have some others that we'll see.
All right.
That's right. All right. Before we get to the right wing nut, I know we covered the national stuff, and we have. There's been not a whole lot of really good local things happening. I mean, there have been a handful of things here or there. I know Tuesday, I got word that they had dismissed the civil suit against the city of Decatur in the Stephen Perkins shooting. And I think that's I'm going to try to write something about it because I think it's a complicated legal issue, the way what they chose to sue for and what was determined to be. They didn't meet the burden that they had on them in the judge's opinion, and so that was dismissed. But we'll get into that more later. And past that in the state, there's been it's been fairly quiet. It really has been fairly quiet. It's been a fairly quiet July. And I think I saw a story the other day, Will Ainsworth saying he may run for governor. Stop it. What are you talking about? You may run for governor. Stop.
Of course he's going to run. Of course
he's going to run. Expect why? I don't know why he wouldn't just say he's going to run. He's going to. Of course he's going to run. He'd probably be the governor. I will say, Rick Pate, who is the ag commissioner in the state, is starting to gain a little steam on and a guy like that. Kind of Bentley-esque type guy, unknown, doesn't really have a lot of things to knock him on. Good old boy that just has a lot of respect from the farmers and folks around. Has done by all accounts, has done a pretty good job as ag commissioner. Very well liked by business folks. Is not insane. Does not run around saying insane things. I think that is very helpful. And I think because listen, I think people get the wrong idea because we tolerate certain things in this state. We tolerate some crazies because, those crazies get elected by the base in this state because we're gerrymandered to hell and back in a lot of cases. And so a lot of our business folks, and let's say the BCA groups, your regions, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Alabama Power South, because there's some concrete companies and some other builders and things in there, Jimmy Rain, Yellowwood. Those folks, they tolerate the craziness, but what they value more than anything is level-headed consistency. Okay, you people, business people, all right, and the most successful ones are not crazy people. Okay, right. They're just not. Right. They're level-headed, and they like consistency and reliability and things that they can count on. And when you have somebody that's running around saying something crazy or doing crazy things from time to time, you start to worry that might be what that person does when they get into the governor's office. And so if you have an alternative setting there that's just nice, steady guy that's going to come in and be, all right, let's just do what we've been doing and not make any noise. That's the reason why people love Kay Ivey. You know what the greatest thing Kay Ivey ever did? Nothing. She just did nothing. And after Robert Bentley, that was what people wanted. Just don't do anything and make us listen to you talk about breasts and stuff, okay? Just stop it. All right? Well, I don't want to hear about, stuff. We don't want to hear about parts.
So, right. No body part talk.
Yeah.
So you're saying Pate's juxtaposed with Ainsworth. You're saying Pate's is the steady...
Steve Marshall.
Oh, okay. So Pates and Ainsworth are steady juxtaposed with Marshall,
No, I think I will say if we had to rank them, Marshall has done and said a lot of crazier things,
right?
Just in the interest of trying to get his name out there. Right. Honestly, I think if somebody went to Steve Marshall and said, "Hey, we need you to be a sane person for the rest of your political career, and we'll back you and make sure you just continue to move up to higher office," Steve Marshall would turn into the sanest. Hell, he'd turn into a Democrat because he once was a Democrat, then he turned into a Republican. But so he would do all of that, all right, to remain in office. And so, but yeah, he said a lot of crazier things than Ainsworth has. But I will say, I think that from time to time, Will says some things that, I think, the statement after the Trump shooting, where he talked about the deranged left and the people at the church, or the Christians are fed up, and and how it was just, it was a statement that didn't need to be made, and it certainly didn't need to be made in that way. That he went on attacking people on the left, and at the end of it said, "We need to stop all this divisive political rhetoric." It's just, did you read the top part of what you said?
You said, yeah.
Mean, it's just, and I like Will. I like him. For all of our disagreements and things, I've said before, Ainsworth, and he'll probably call me after this. But which is fine. We'll have a conversation, and I'll say the same thing. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to talk behind his back, or anything. And it's because he'll call you and have a discussion with you about it. We're not going to necessarily back off our positions, but he'll explain what he was trying to say, and I'll explain what I was trying to say. And at the end of it, we end up laughing about something. So, that's the reason why I like him. I don't like his positions. I wish he would not do some of the things that he does sometimes, and believe some of the things that he does. But and then you have Pate down there, and Rick Pate has just been this steady guy that I think has been fairly reliable in the job that he's in. And granted, his job is far less visible than that of the lieutenant governor. To the general public. I mean, the farmers and other folks, he's a guy that they see all the time, and they like, and they respect, and they respect the job that he's done. And I don't discount that in any way. But for the general public, he's not as visible as Ainsworth and Steve Marshall. And sometimes that is a big benefit when people, let's say you're a doctor from Tuscaloosa, a dermatologist maybe. And you don't have as much stuff out there for people to go and hate you for. I think that sometimes makes a difference, and so it'd be interesting to see. But I will say this: I'm not convinced that Steve Marshall is going to actually run for governor. I think he has some other plans, and we'll see. I think he may have his eyes on a seat in either Congress or the Senate, and I had this conversation with another Democrat the other day, and this is how bad things are. Okay, we both said replacing Tommy Tuberville with Steve Marshall would be a significant upgrade. Okay, I mean, it would be, and we all know it would be. And let me tell you why. And I'm going to write a story about this very soon. Katie Britt is bringing home far more money to the state than Tommy Tuberville is. And she has been there far less time than he has, and should be far less ingrained into the committees and to the structure of the Senate than he is. And he ain't, as my grandmother used to say, that boy ain't pissing a drop. And he's not. And so I think that Marshall could go and get in that seat and be, I think he would be what people wanted him to be.
Yeah, he's got such, well, you know him better than I do. You've been following him much more closely than I, but he just strikes me as such a zealous ideologue. It's just hard for me to see him any other way. Britt has always projected, I think, at least a modicum of, rationality, and then of course, she was under the tutelage of Richard Shelby, and so she was over the BCA. So there were always indications there that even though sometimes she would say grossly partisan things, at her base, she would she had the potential to be better, do better, and so she's been. I would say that she's probably been about as good a conservative Republican senator as one can be, being a conservative Republican. But it's hard for me to see Steve Marshall, to see in him that same potential. I hope you're right. If that is what he's trying to do, I hope you're right.
I don't think that I am saying that he could have that potential. Okay, what I'm saying is that if he were to be given that opportunity, I think that he could go there in the Senate and tamp down. First of all, I don't think he's an ideologue. All right, I think he's malleable to whatever moves him forward. Okay, that's what I think.
Okay.
I don't think he has a certain ideology that he has. I think that he's just somebody that sticks his finger in the wind and sees which way it's blowing, and that's to which way he goes. That's not. I don't mean that to say that he doesn't have any true beliefs or anything like that. I'm sure he does, but I just think that he could tamp that down, and he would probably do it very willingly. And he could be a person that acts in a professional, serious manner, unlike Tommy Tuberville, who nobody takes serious up there, and land on committees that would ultimately benefit the state far more than what Tuberville's ever going to be able to do. He could be almost a Jeff Sessions to Richard Shelby. You know what I'm saying?
Well, when you put it that way, and again, of course, Jeff Sessions was a zealous ideologue, but he wasn't. But he did have a practical side to him. When you put it that way, I get what you're saying, and maybe I mean I haven't seen that from Marshall, but I agree with you. If he were that guy, that would be an upgrade. I agree with you on that. That would be an upgrade.
Listen, let's keep in mind where the bar is currently, which is laying on the ground. Okay.
You sure it's not? You sure it's not? They haven't dug a trench and it's really under the ground.
It could be. Yes, it could very well be. I mean, one thing's for certain: we don't need Kay Ivey's high step to get over it. Okay.
Right.
This is not a step too high for a high stepper. You know what I mean? I mean, so that's where we are. We're at Tommy Tuberville level here, who thinks the three branches of government, or the House, the Senate, and the executive. God. I think we've got that race in front of us between Ainsworth and whoever. Ainsworth is going to be far better funded than anybody, and so I think he's ultimately going to probably end up being the governor. Plus, there's the added bonus of we're never really sure if Kay Ivey is going to end up completing her term, because she is on up in age and health, and so it's always a risk when you get to that point, as we've seen with Joe Biden. And really odd to me that not a lot of people have made kind of similar comparisons between Ivey and Biden. Because I feel like the two of them, Biden's been a very successful president.
Yes.
I certainly think there has been decline. There's no doubt about that. There's been some decline over the last years. You can look at it. You can look at the videos and clearly see that. And I think the same is true for Kay Ivey. I mean, maybe to a lesser degree. But I mean, and again, this is not a knock.
Josh,
people take this as
not to a lesser degree. Not
you don't
to a
think
lesser
so?
degree. No. I think her decline has been. Very obvious. I think it's been very obvious, and I don't say that to be mean or disparaging. I just think it's the fact. It's just been obvious.
Yeah. Again, I don't dislike Kay Ivey.
I don't dislike her either.
I don't agree with a lot of her policies. I don't agree with some of the things that she's done, but I think I have a lot of respect for her. First of all, she's been a woman in politics in Alabama for this amount of time and had the success that she's had. Man, you can't have nothing but respect for her. But at the same time, I do think there has been some decline there, but I still feel like she has her finger on what the people want, which is nothing. From the governor's office, and to her credit, I mean, she's like, listen, they don't want anything. I'm giving them what they want. I think that, she's been a successful governor. It's weird to me that a lot of people have, so attacked Biden at times, and then, nothing. And she's remained very, very popular in polling, all around. So,
well, I mean, there's a double standard in a red state. I mean, you're always, and it'd probably be the same if it were a blue state, and the governor was, a Democrat and the president was a Republican. I mean, we're biased, So we give deference to the people. We give leeway to the people that we're aligned with politically, and we don't see in them the same thing that we see in other people, right, even though they're exactly the same. Yeah. But anyway, go on. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was gonna get us to the right wing nut and then wrap it up so we can get the hell out of here. I mean, we've given these people way too much already. This thing's free for them. You know that? I mean, we ain't figured out a way to charge yet. Oh, that people would pay. I think we've landed on the price that people are willing to pay.
Right, which is nothing.
Right, exactly. Listen, our right wing nut to kick this off, and really it is. I wanted to highlight this because it is a fantastic piece of reporting by Kavitha Cardoza. I believe is if I have butchered your name, Ms. Cardoza, I sincerely apologize because I am trying in all my best to give you accolades, even though I may have messed up your first name. If so, I do apologize. But it appears in AL.com. It's from something called the Heckinger Report. Apparently they partnered with AL.com on this story to send her to Russellville. And the right-wing nuts are not them. It's the right-wing nuts are the people in Russellville who have run out a very successful superintendent by the name of Heath Grimes. They've relieved him of his duties. He is no longer employed in the school district. And his great crime was being too successful in educating Hispanic students. By all accounts, national awards and other things, Mr. Grimes has done a fantastic job in the city of Russellville school system, educating a population, a ever-growing population of Hispanic students who are coming there to work in the various plants around. Their families were and brought their kids obviously along with them, and they had a real problem when he arrived in educating English second language, English as a second language students, and he implemented programs and embraced the Hispanic community, because their kids that lived in his town. And their families that lived in his town, and the only way that we're ever going to get better is through education. And he recognized this as a problem, recognized the limited resources that he had in this state, especially, and came up with creative ways around it. And I was telling David, in this story, you should read the story. It's AL.com. The title of the story is "An Alabama Superintendent Made Big Gains. He Was Shown the Door." And so one of the things he did was, because there was such a communication gap between the teachers who did not speak Spanish and some of the students who did not speak very much English. He went to a local church and a local organization, and that dealt with Hispanic families in the community, and used them as a conduit to meet Hispanic families, and then met a number of women in that community who wanted to be educators, and put them through training courses and had them certified as aides to come into the school system and help the teachers communicate. There's service translators in the school system and help them communicate, help the students feel better. They also learned about the Hispanic communities. And, I've heard this a lot from folks around, because I grew up in Decatur. And Decatur, if you don't know, has a very high Hispanic population as well. We had a couple of chicken plants. That seems to be things that attract a large Hispanic populations, or plants like that. And so we had one. Wayne Farms, came in and they had, and it attracted a number of Hispanic families into the community, and it started to grow. And now they have a very large population there. And one of the things I heard from friends of mine who were teachers and friends of the family and stuff was that, the parents, they're not involved. They don't care. Well, as they found out in this story, that's part of the culture, because they see it as offensive in their culture to go and question teachers. So parents take a hands-off approach, believing that the teachers and the administrators at school know best, and they should stay out of their business. And that's one of the things that they discovered in this process was, hey, we've got to work harder to explain to them how it works here, and that we want them involved. And once they did that, they got involved. And they brought more parents into the school. They started a soccer program. They started things that related to that community, and it drew them in. And he just did too good of a job. As one person put it, he was too good at educating the Spanish speaking population, and it was attracting Hispanics to the community. I don't know what to do with people anymore, man. We're talking about kids. We're talking about kids here, educating kids to be better. They're here. They're here.
Yeah, it's well, as a black man in America, I hear this and all I can do is just chuckle. I just think it's just the same old, it just won't, that virus of racism and bigotry and white supremacy, it just won't go away. You can't kill it. It's just, it's too
I just don't,
deeply embedded in our DNA, man.
Maybe it's just like the realist in me. And I can't wrap my head around why it is that people think of skin color that way. You know what I mean? Why of all the things, why do you determine someone's abilities and worth to you, and how the respect you're going to give them based on the color of their skin? How can that be? What would make you do that? So, do you think less of me because I tan up easy in the summer? You know what I mean? It's as ludicrous as that, though. You know what I'm saying? It is. It's every bit as ludicrous as that. It just doesn't. It never made sense to me. Why that was a thing.
It doesn't. It's so nonsensical. Another example of how nonsensical it is you got people that are my complexion in the black community, and let me tell you, in the wintertime, I'm lighter than this. There are white people. I put my arms up against some of my white friends or associates. In the wintertime, man, we're about the same. In some cases, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just so insane. The whole logic of it is just insane, and yet it persists. We can't get rid of it.
Yeah,
we can't get rid of it.
It's one of the most disappointing, infuriating, disgusting stories, especially for one that's as well reported as this one, is that I've ever read. Of course, the mayor and some of the other folks, they deny it. But you can look back at the track record of what they were doing and how they were doing it, and the fact that they won't answer anybody's questions about it. And there's no knock on this guy. He's already found another job working for a group that that's helping Hispanic families, and it's just. What happened. I can, as a reporter, I can read between the lines here and see what was going on. The woman who reported this, she chased these people all over the place, trying to give them an opportunity to answer things, sent them email after email after email, chased the mayor down on the street in Russellville, went around talking to all the business owners and people in town, tried to go in and talk to council members. It's ludicrous to think that this story is not true. Okay, it's it. Yeah. They fired this guy because they didn't like what he was doing with the Hispanic community in that school system. And it's just it's so disheartening. And listen, if you want people get upset when you knock Alabama and talk about the image that we have, this is why we have the image. All right, we allow this shit to go on.
And an interesting point here in the story is Grimes has described himself as a Southern conservative and man of faith from rural Alabama.
Yep.
So he even defies, based on this story, he defies the stereotypes that we have of, Southern conservatives who are Christians.
But should he? Should he? I mean, shouldn't that be what should define a Southern conservative Christian? And I mean, somebody who went out and said,
I agree.
These people are in our community and they're children just like our children, and they need to be educated, and we need to do all that we can to do that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Yeah.
No. All righty. Listen, if you can't laugh, cry, and get depressed by the end of this thing, then I don't know of a better podcast, okay? All right? You shouldn't be listening to other podcasts. You should just stay with this one, because we're going to leave you. We'll make you happy, and then we'll depress the hell out of you. All right, that's going to do it for us for this week. We'll be back next week. Until then, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.